This week on the Communicators, part 3 of a 4-part series looking at privacy and telecommunications policy. Our guests are Linda Woolley of the Direct Marketing Association and Jeff Chester of the Center for Digital Democracy.
This is the third installment of the Communicators' look at online privacy. This week, we're going to be talking with the advertisers and with consumer groups. Joining us is Linda Woolley of the Direct Marketing Association. Juliana Grunwald, the editor of Tech Daily Dose, continues as our guest reporter. Linda Woolley, if I could start with some testimony from Jeff Chester, who is the guest following you. He is with the Center for Digital Democracy. In front of the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee, he talked about the advertisers, and this is what he had to say, and we'd like to get your response. Industry self-regulation, it is clear, has failed to offer meaningful protections to consumer privacy. So-called notice and choice, which has been the foundation of the self-regulatory regime, has done nothing to stem the tide of increasing data collection and use, all without the genuinely informed understanding and consent of users.
Notice and choice has been the hallmark of DMA's self-regulatory program, which has been in existence for some 30 years. We absolutely believe that an informed consumer who has the opportunity to make a decision about what they want and what they don't want is the best for everybody. As marketers, we're in the business of offering products and services to consumers and hoping that they're not just consumers, that they turn into customers. And the last thing you want to do with a customer is make them angry. So we really want to make sure they're happy, make sure they, especially on the internet, have a good internet experience. We don't want to make them frightened. We don't want to make them mad. And we want them to look at our ads and make purchases. One of the things that has been great about the internet is that it has been such an unbelievable economic driver. I don't know if you know this, but this past year, 2009, was the first time that sales on Cyber Monday exceeded sales on Black Friday. So, you know, there is, I've heard members of Congress say from time to time, well, we really only want to make sure that consumers are comfortable on the internet. I think by far and away, consumers have shown that they're pretty comfortable on the internet, and they like making purchases there. So anyway, I want to go back to the self-regulatory issue because that really is kind of a DMA hallmark. DMA has had a self-regulatory program for, as I say, 30 years. It started initially with mail preference. Back in the old days, it was called the Mail Preference Service.
M-A-I-L.
Mail, yes, it's now called Consumer Choice, and if you go to www.dma.consumerchoice.org, you can, that is still an opt-out program for mail, M-A-I-L. And where, in some ways, it's unfortunate that this interview is this week and not a couple of weeks from now, because we are in the process with other advertising associations of launching the next prong of our self-regulatory program, which has to do with interest-based ads on the internet. This program will, I think I mentioned to you that I was watching one of your earlier shows with David Vladeck, and one of the things that he mentioned was that the FTC is keenly interested in having some sort of a symbol where consumers can see the symbol and know what it means and have confidence that they can make choices about ads. And that is exactly what the next phase of the self-regulatory program is going to do. We're going to be launching an icon which will appear on third-party delivered ads on the internet. Once consumers get familiar with it, they'll be able to see it and know instantly what it means. It means that you're being delivered interest-based ads. And then with one or possibly two, but typically one click, you will be able to exercise choices.
Well, Linda Woolley, when it comes to wireless, and this is, we're all about apps these days. And this is an app for USA Today, but it's the same with Amazon or the NFL or anything else. And this is right on my phone. And I wanted to download this app. But it says that this application has access to the following: your location, storage, network communications, which is full internet access to my phone, and phone calls. It can read phone, state, and identity. That could frighten some people if they want to get news from USA Today or purchase something on Amazon. Why is it necessary that Amazon or any other advertiser know the phone calls that are being made from this phone?
Mm-hmm. I agree with you entirely that that could frighten someone, and I think that that is one of the most important tenets of self-regulation has to be this whole idea of transparency, that consumers have to know what's going on and they have to be able to make choices. And I think what's happened with the internet, and you raised the issue of a phone. Marketing is migrating more and more to mobile devices, whether phones or iPads or whatever other kind of mobile device. And so there are new rules of the road, new guidelines that are going to have to be issued for those kinds of things. I mean, one of the things that DMA just did this past within the last quarter was we updated our mobile marketing guidelines. And once again, our guidelines can be found at www.dmaresponsibility.org. They're there for anyone to see. But because DMA has so many members, our guidelines wind up being the best practices for marketers. And if you're a DMA member, when you become a member, you literally have to sign on your membership application that you will follow our guidelines about marketing, what's good marketing practice. And part of that is notice and choice for consumers.
You mentioned notice and choice, and you mentioned this consumer choice that you've had available for snail mail. If you want to opt out of it, I'm assuming getting junk mail.
We don't call it junk mail.
getting unsolicited mail from marketers or whatever. I've never heard of that, and I feel like I'm somebody who does seek out those type of things.
Uh-huh.
What are you doing to make sure consumers know about these choices and are taking actions that they might want to take?
Well, with DMA Choice, I'm sorry to hear that you don't know about it. I really am, because we launched it a couple of years ago now, and we did a lot of press around it, including ads, and somebody from our New York office was on Good Morning America, and all sorts of press things around DMA Choice. So clearly we have, especially since you're in the tech world, clearly we have some more work to do there to make sure that consumers know about that. But on the new stuff, on online advertising, we're planning on having a series of webinars, which we've got mapped out, and we've got scripted, and we've got dates for, and just really planning to do a whole consumer education program about it. One of our sister organizations called the Interactive Advertising Bureau, IAB, recently did a public service campaign on the internet, which you may have seen, called, I don't know what it was called, but the ad said, ads are creepy, or something with creepy. And I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but the number of people who clicked on those ads or moused over those ads was dramatically higher than the usual number for public service announcements. And I think it goes to your point of consumers want to know what's going on. They want to know why I got this ad. They want to know what kind of data is being collected. And those kinds of public service announcements, I think, go a long way to explain that kind of thing. And that's our hope with the icon, that it will further what consumers know.
Well, since we sort of referenced it, let me ask you about this whole idea of online behavioral advertising, which is the idea of tracking a consumer's web activity so you can target particular ads at them. How important is that to the growth of your industry, and do most of your members do it?
Well, it's tremendously important. One of the things with direct marketing, I have to tell you, the Direct Marketing Association has been around for 90 plus years, and that's really as long as direct marketing has been around. So this is not a new phenomenon. We're talking about it newly online and on mobile, with mobile applications. But direct marketing with mail or any other kinds of thing has been around for a very long time. And the tenets of direct marketing are you need data about a consumer or potential consumer, and you need analytics. That's what differentiates direct marketing from advertising. That's what differentiates it from what you see on the side of a bus that is not targeted to you as an individual or me as an individual. It's so it's a different thing, and I know that we all have a tendency to lump advertising and direct marketing together. They really are different. So again, going back to your interview with David Vladeck, one of the things that he said was that consumers have to understand that information and personal information is a commodity. And that's true. That is absolutely, positively true, and it's been true for the last 100 years. Because that's what direct marketers do. That's what makes them so much more effective than the ad on the side of the bus. So that having been said, if we know that information is a commodity and that's what direct marketers do, then we still get back to the point that consumers have to be comfortable with it. And that's where our self-reg program and our guidelines and whatnot come in. Because, again, I go back to what I said originally, you don't want to make consumers angry. You want to make them happy and you want to have them purchase things.
Linda Woolley, how, in your view, would the draft bill by Congressman Boucher and Stearns affect your business?
Well, one of the things I think we've got to be careful with Boucher and Stearns or any other bill that comes down the pike is right now the internet is a huge economic driver, just in general. But in terms of direct marketing, it's a tremendous economic driver, both in terms of employment and consumer sales and economic growth. And it would, some of these proposals could have a dramatic effect on the direct marketing industry. The other thing I think we've really got to remember about the internet and ads being an economic driver is the internet is free. There is a tremendous amount of content that's available on the internet, whether it's checking, you mentioned sports scores or checking stock prices or doing a Google search on a rare thing, whatever it might be, or buying things from eBay, or the thing that is amazing about it is that a child in Malawi with a $100 computer has access to the world now. It's really quite remarkable. But the reason that they do is because of the economic model. All of this is supported by ads. And if you don't have the ad revenue to support that, then you have to do something else. And the something else typically is paying for content. And I'm not sure that that's where consumers want to go.
So in order to access Amazon app on my telephone, I have to allow them access to my phone records and my internet searches?
Well, I think we need to put. I don't disagree that maybe some limits have to be put around things. One of the things that DMA is very much against. I don't know how technical I should get here. I've heard that other speakers have talked occasionally about things that are persistent, things like flash cookies or as distinguished from regular cookies that consumers can't necessarily get rid of or can't change your browser settings to get rid of. We would oppose using those for marketing purposes. There may be reasons to use those technologies to deliver something to you, like a movie or a TV show or something, a game, something that's more interactive. But that's different from collecting information and using it for marketing purposes. And we would oppose the use of persistent technologies for marketing purposes.
You said that the Boucher-Stearns draft bill would have a dramatic effect on your industry. Can you give a little more detail on that and what
Sure.
you don't like or do like about that bill? I know the privacy advocates are not happy with that bill. They don't think it goes nearly far enough, and that it's actually a little too industry friendly, at least for their taste.
Yeah, well, we would not describe the bill as industry friendly, so we would have a healthy disagreement over that one. The kinds of things that we don't like about it, we think it's much too broad, and a lot of the definitions are very broad. There are things in there that I think everybody would agree is personally identifiable information that has been defined many times over by other laws as personally identifiable information, like social security number. But then there's also other things in there that are considered personally identifiable information, like your postal address. Well, going back to what I said about the legacy of direct marketing, and we would not consider your postal address as personally identifiable information. That would really be a sore spot. There are a lot of restrictions on transferring data to a third party, and it's not just transferring data to a third party for the purpose of marketing, but it's also transferring data to a third party for analytics. So if you are a large retailer and you want to analyze the data of your consumers, typically that's done by somebody else. And so there are restrictions on being able to do that. So again, without getting too much into the weeds, that's an example of the kinds of things we don't like.
Final question, Juliana Grudenwald.
Well, I mean, a lot of people would say that the web gives you an ability to aggregate so much types of data about a person. Do you think there should be any limits on that? Any privacy protections mandated by law?
Well, I think Congress has done a really good job so far on limiting the kinds of things that they don't want used or aggregated. Personal health information is one of those things. Financial information is one of those things. There are all kinds of limits on marketing to children. I think the most important thing really from marketers' point of view, the Direct Marketing Association's point of view, is really that marketing information should only be used for marketing purposes. And it should not be used for government surveillance. It shouldn't be used for tax, scoping out tax evaders. It shouldn't be used for anti-terrorist activities. It shouldn't be used for employment information. It should only be used for marketing. And here I'd like to really draw the distinction between personal and private. There's lots of information, like health information, that I think we'd all agree is private. Financial information is private. Personal, I would say, is something that's tailored to me. It's personal. It's not personal, like I don't want anyone to know it, but it's specific to me. So it could be the kind of car you drive. Your neighbors know the kind of car you drive. The people you carpool with know the kind of car you drive. It's not private. And that's really the distinction I think that maybe needs to be made.
Linda Woolley, who are members of the Direct Marketing Association?
The Direct Marketing Association, we're pretty much 50-50 in terms of suppliers, companies probably who you've never heard of that are involved in the process of getting a message to you or an offer to you. And then the other 50% think of some of the most major corporations in the United States.
Who advertise. The car companies, the booksellers.
All of those. Financial service providers, consumer services, they're all members of DMA.
Linda Woolley is the Executive Vice President for Government Affairs of the Direct Marketing Association. Thank you for being on the Communicators. Up next, Jeff Chester of the Center for Digital Democracy. And Jeff Chester is the founder and executive director of the Center for Digital Democracy. Mr. Chester, we just talked with Linda Woolley of the Direct Marketing Association. She said that Stearns Boucher, the draft legislative proposal, is not business friendly. Do you agree?
Consumers need to be protected when they go online. Consumers today face a far-reaching data collection system that's tracking them wherever they go, that's watching them behind the scenes. It's like somebody was shadowing you in your neighborhood, writing everything down, what restaurants you go to, what dry cleaning establishments, what your child does. All this is compiled. None of this is transparent. What Americans need is an internet where, in fact, they're assured that they know what information is collected, how it's used, and they get to agree, certainly on the most critical things involving their lives, their finances, their health, their children, their politics, their race. They get to decide what's collected and how it's used. All that Stearns and Boucher and Congressman Rush's bill would do would be to provide some additional safeguards for citizens, for consumers, so they could better control their information. The idea that the internet, as we know it, is going to go bankrupt, that they're going to have to shut down if we protect consumers online when they engage in transactions and protect their privacy, is absurd and frankly disingenuous. We can have a healthy, robust internet economy and have privacy. In fact, we need to ensure consumer privacy if we're going to have that kind of robust internet online.
So you're saying the Stearns-Boucher approach is not enough?
Stearns-Boucher approach is not enough because, in fact, what we really need to have is a system where consumers are really told how the data collection system works, what's being collected, how it's being used, and give them much more choice. There's a way to make this work. You know, the online advertising industry is incredibly innovative, right? They have created this amazing data collection and tracking system. Well, they can easily use all their ingenuity to come up with a way to help consumers understand when I'm applying for a mortgage online, when I'm looking at a drug company website, when my kid is on Facebook, what is really happening? What do I need to know? And what choices might I have? It's called opt-in, and we want to see much more of this information under the control of the individual. We should not have a democracy where, in fact, we allow anyone, whether it's companies, government, to collect massive amounts of information about us individually and be able to use that information to target us, whether we're in front of our computer or using our cell phone or playing a video game, and soon even with television as it goes fully interactive, to target us with very powerful advertising and other messages designed to suit their interests, not necessarily ours.
The FTC Chairman John Leibowitz and some privacy groups have floated the idea of a do not track list, similar to the do not call list aimed at unwanted telemarketing calls. Do you think that's something that's feasible? Is that something you would favor?
Look, we should have a do not track list because the do not call list shows this can work. You know, tens of billions of people easily signed up. They don't want to be bothered anymore. But the fact is, the problem is far beyond just a do not track. And really, the missing link in this debate is about the power of the online advertising system. This is advertising and marketing like we've never seen it before. This is about collecting information about you as an individual, being able to track you wherever you are, and take that information and transform that ad in real time to influence you and to target you. And they've developed a host of ways to collect this data, you know, without it being transparent. So do not track answers part of the problem, but the other part of the problem is ensuring that the advertisers and the marketers disclose to you what information is being collected and how it's done. Give us some control. Increasingly, online advertisers are using what they call neuromarketing. They're creating the ads to directly influence our subconscious mind. And I know it sounds like a kind of science fiction a story, but that's true. The system that online advertisers have created is one that I think raises fundamental questions about the future of the online system. It's about collecting all this information about you as an individual, being able to track you, being able to influence you, and increasingly designing the ads and the other messages to work on your subconscious. Neurofocus is a good example of a company doing that, and people can go on their website and look at the videos. So this is a very powerful system where American consumers, frankly, are at risk unless we have the government coming in and creating some fair rules of the road.
Well, you've been critical of the FTC, saying it's not done enough to rein in online marketers. What would you like to see them do? They say that it's not within their scope. They don't have the rulemaking authority they need to go after some of these practices.
Well, of course, lobbying organizations like the Direct Marketing Association successfully convinced Congress recently to remove out of the legislation the provision that would have given the Federal Trade Commission more power here. I mean, online advertisers and direct marketers are terrified of an FTC cop on the beat. Problem is that even under this administration, the Federal Trade Commission is behind the times. It's not doing enough to protect consumers. They have have a privacy division and they have an advertising division. Well, the advertising division is still looking at this problem like it was 1970. Well, it's the 21st century. And until the FTC sort of wakes up from its digital slumber, we're at risk.
So, Mr. Chester, at what point, though, do the advertisers have some rights?
We want to see online advertising thrive, and they do have rights. But what we want is some kind of transparency and accountability. And when it comes, as I said, for me, when it comes to the areas that really affect us the most. Look, at my organization, we've been looking at online advertising and financial marketing and the system they've created to track people when they apply for a mortgage or apply for a credit card. This is even on the mobile device today. Or when you go onto a pharmaceutical website and you're getting drug information, or as I said, your kid is looking, for example, at YouTube. All this information is being collected. People are being tracked. They're being encouraged to do one thing or another. None of this is clear. None of this is transparent. We should not have all this happening behind the closed screen, so to speak. So what we want the advertisers to do is to be honest. Now, I know that may sound like an oxymoron, truth and advertising, but in fact, the advertisers need to disclose what they've created, or we need the Federal Trade Commission and the Congress to force them to do so, and then we can proceed with a system that's honest, that's candid, and that tells individuals what their choices are.
How would that work in real time on the internet? You know, would some pop box or a box pop up? Or what about this idea of the icon that consumers can click on that Linda Woolley talked about?
Well, I think we can come up with a way to make this work. They need to be honest about what they tell. When that icon pops up, it needs to say, by the way, we're tracking you site to site. You know, we've got information from outside databases and brought that into the process. You know, today, a part of this system includes auctioning us off in real time on these online ad exchanges, a process I find dehumanizing, frankly. In other words, when they place a cookie on your web browser, right, they know what you're interested in, they get other information, they add to that, and they auction the right to target you, even when you're on the street, when you're near one location versus another. Do we really want to have a system like that? So they need to disclose what they're doing in as concise a way as possible. And when it comes, once again, to the kinds of applications and services that are most important in our lives, finance and health and young people, there are some things, frankly, the online advertisers shouldn't do.
Jeff Chester, Linda Woolley has been quoted as saying that to develop tools to allow customers to, or consumers to view and edit their profiles, it is a good idea, but it's going to take a while for the advertisers to develop these tools.
Well, I'm afraid I don't agree with Ms. Woolley. The fact is that what the advertising industry has done, not just in the United States, but globally, and U.S. companies are in the lead, is they've created, and they're doing this on a daily basis, new ways to collect more profile information from consumers. I mean, there's a kind of digital data collection arms race going on where nobody can disarm, so to speak, because the name of the game in advertising today, and that's what people really need to understand. It's not an ad delivered to 1 million people, 5 million people, 10,000 people. It's an ad and message delivered to you personally. They can come up with ways of allowing an individual to edit their profile. We think they can do that soon, and we want, frankly, the FTC and the Congress to make them do so.
Aren't firms like Google and Yahoo doing that now? Can't you go in and click on their privacy centers and do that?
As a response to the political pressure that privacy and consumer groups and governments have raised, companies like Google and others are allowing people to come in and edit some of their profile information. But the fact is, even that doesn't really inform consumers about the process. Google owns a number of companies, one of which takes the data about you and changes the copy instantly based on your latest interests and concerns. That's not part of controlling your profile information. So the companies need to give consumers all the tools they need to control their profile.
Jeff Chester, what about the ISPs like Cox or Comcast and Verizon? They have access to all this information, to every click on your computer or every television show that you watch.
That's right.
Correct?
That's right. And yes.
At what point are they part of the Stearns-Boucher regulation?
Well, they are covered, I believe, in the Rush bill. But what we need, it's called deep packet inspection. In other words, the company that's your ISP is able to get a 24/7 view of everything you do, including your television. In the ideal world, we would not allow that to happen. But the fact of the matter is, online advertising is the basic business model for the new media and for all of media. So we need to impose real safeguards. But we should try to stop this kind of surveillance from your ISP about everything that you do. And remember, it's not just what you're watching on TV or online, but increasingly it's where you get your cell phone as well.
Is anybody doing deep packet inspection right now? This issue came up, I want to say, last year before Congress, and there was one company that had proposed it and then backed off.
Well,
at the time.
Privacy groups, including my own, raised this problem 2 years ago when one cable company, or 3 years ago perhaps now, Charter Cable, wanted to do this. And this shows you that protecting privacy is a bipartisan issue because Congressman Markey and Congressman Joe Barton worked together and have been sort of raising the alarm to prevent this kind of 24/7 surveillance from emerging. But I think this is a good example of the problem. Every day, and that's what we track at the Center for Digital Democracy, every day they're creating new ways to track and profile and target us. I mean, what they're already able to do with the mobile phone is frankly alarming because here they know this device is yours and they know where it is in the street. And I'm sure you are aware now of this new emergence of what they call location targeting, where they're finding ways to get you into the store. As you walk by the store, your phone will jiggle and they'll give you a discount, et cetera. All this is being collected and the government is behind the times here, and we need to see some real regulation. We need to see the online advertising industry come to the table and work with privacy advocates, the consumer advocates, and protect the public.
But Jeff Chester, on the other side, you can turn off your GPS on your phone. And what would be the argument against getting a 10% discount on a store that you're standing in front of?
You can turn the GPS, but when that little phone rings and you're looking for a restaurant, for example, of course you say you can share my information now, but do you know whether or not they've taken that information and added it to your profile? Do you know if in fact they have bought outside databases and have expanded that profile? Do you know if they've sold that information? All these things are going on, and that's part of the problem that a huge industry has developed under the nose of the government. The government's behind the times. It involves not only our privacy, but our own personal deep interests. We'll be using that mobile phone to apply for a loan. We'll be using that mobile phone to make a doctor's appointment. All that information is being collected and used without the awareness and consent of the consumer citizen. That's not the direction we want this country and this marketplace to go.
Juliana Grunwald.
If Congress changes hands after the November elections and Republicans take over the House and Senate or both, do you think privacy will remain an issue that Congress will tackle? You mentioned Congressman Barton, who could become the chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, or not, but what do you see happening on this issue next year? And even Congressman Boucher says he thinks the issue is going to slip to next year.
Well, I do think it's a bipartisan issue. Both Republicans and Democratic congressional leaders are deeply disturbed about this system. The question is, what kind of legislative approach would they take? And of course, the Federal Trade Commission is going to issue its new proposals in the next few weeks as well. I do think this is an issue that is boiling over. The time is ripe now for some action. And what's going to force Congress's hand is, frankly, that we see almost on a daily basis headlines, this kind of problem, this kind of data was collected inappropriately, this kind of data was released by mistake, and all of a sudden all these people have Social Security numbers. I mean, this data collection complex is really out of control, I'm sad to say, and consequently it's going to frankly provide fuel for this privacy debate in the next few years.
Jeff Chester of the Center for Digital Democracy, Linda Woolley, said earlier in this program that personal information is a commodity. Do you agree?
Well, Ms. Woolley is right. Data, information, is the new global currency. It's not necessarily how much money you have in the bank, but it's how much data you can accrue, acquire, and sell and control. That's why you have the emergence of these companies basically, developed on collecting information, such as Google, and Microsoft is moving in that direction. All the major ad agencies have now created divisions to collect more user data. Data is power. But the problem here is we're not just talking about buying a book or buying a t-shirt. We're talking about how we're going to get our political information, how we're going to get our health and medical information, how our children are being raised. And this information, this data is being collected and is designed to influence them in ways that we as individuals and parents, for example, have no clue about. And that shouldn't be the way it operates.
Final question.
What can the FTC do now that it's not doing?
The Federal Trade Commission needs to bring together, make the links between the online advertising system, the system they've created to actually collect all the data, and the practice of collecting the data. It's the online advertising system that is in fact fueling this data collection process. So until the FTC brings its advertising division up to the 21st century, we're still going to have a problem here with privacy.
Jeff Chester is the founder and executive director of the Center for Digital Democracy. We also talked with Linda Woolley of the Direct Marketers Association, Marketing Association earlier. This has been the third installment in the Communicators Look at Online Privacy. Earlier, we talked with David Vladeck of the FTC, who heads up their online privacy efforts. We talked with Ann Toth of Yahoo, who is the director of privacy for that corporation. Next week, Congressman Stearns and Congressman Boucher will be on this program together to talk about their online privacy bill. Jeff Chester, thank you. Juliana Grunwald, we'll see you next week.